Hello, my lovers. One of the days last week, my man come back from, well, he day go to work, because he don't work. He what y'all call a shift worker. Y'all mention work and he'll shift. He come in. I said, then you know who's been in the street this morning? He says, oh, Dracula. I says, no, television detective van. Oh, well, what's that got to do with me? I said, got a lot to do with you. I said, we ain't got near a license. He said, well, when we went to license for, it runs all right around one. I says, not so fast as the Black Maria will run when it takes you out to jail. I said, I went £4 off you towards the television licence. And he looked at me, they spake. I says, £4 towards the licence. He said, no, he says, I must have a code in my ears. He says, I can't hear a thing out of this here. So I went round the other side. I says, £5. Towards the licence. He says, y'all come back round this side. He says, what's the other bad news you've got? Has your dinner spoiled? He says, how's that? Has the fish shaps burned down? He says, you know that builder up the road as I've been doing some odd jobs for? I says, oh. He said, well, he asked me to build a wall 6 foot high to stun thy winds. So I built him one 6 foot high. So I finished it yesterday, and I got on the phone and told him to come round and have a look at it. So he come today. He says he looked at the wall, and then he looked at me, and the way he looked, he says, I thought I'd done a good job. So after a bit he says, well, I've seen some walls built in me time, but I've never seen one like this. 6 foot high and 6 foot wide. He says, what was you thinking about when you made it 6 foot wide? I said, well, you wanted a wall built 6 foot high to stand our winds. Well, if the wind blows this and over, it'll still be a standing up. I says, you're back to square one then now, are you? He says, oh. I said, well, I'll have a bit of bread and scrape for your dinner now. So he had a bit of bread and scrape. And a bit later on, he said, I think I shall go out again, I'll change, mate. So he took his cap off and put his trilby on. and he went out. Well, he hadn't been out long before it started to pour rain. So when he come back, he was soaked. I said, well, he's done some of that, so they're going out. And he started to cough. And he coughed and coughed all night. Coughed the next morning. He says, oh, I ain't had a bit of sleep all night. I says, you'll lie on the edge of the bed the next time. I says, you'll soon drop off. I said, I'll have to go down the doctor's with that cough. I said, I'm serious if you'll let it go, you know, like that. He says, I should. He said, last time I went down the doctor's, he said, he gave me a bottle of medicine. I'd got to take it 3 times a day in winter. He said, I was in and out the bath all the week. I said, well, give you one like that, he give you something for your cough. So he went. When he come back, I says, has he give you anything? He says, no, I've got to get some Cenopods and some liquid paraffin. And I say nothing. And some Epsom salts. Put it in a cup, put some hot water on, I got to drink it. I thought, oh, the best of luck when you got that down. I said, well, what did the doctor say? I said, to give a recipe like that. He said, well, I asked him, I says, doctor, will it cure me cough? The doctor says, my good man, you'll be frightened to cough. Put him to bed for a week, that did. 2 weeks to get up. Well, I was in a mess because I wanted to go down the town, do a bit of shopping. And I couldn't get him up because, he couldn't walk down the stairs hardly, and I thought it was a shame. I let him top up there. So I said to the minor bird, I said, when the coalman comes, 4 bags of coal and the money's on the mantelpiece. And I said it about 6 times to him, and out I went. So I went down the market, I wanted some buttons for overcoat. So I said to him on the stall, I said, how much are the buttons for overcoat? He says, 15 pence. I said, dozen? He says, no, 1, them big uns. I said, get out, I could bought a loaf for that. He says, oh, yeah, look at the trouble you had sewing it on. So I went in the grocer's shop, I wanted some new laid eggs. I said, how much are the eggs? He says, 4 pence each, 3 pence the cracked ones. I says, crack me off a dozen. Well, I come out there and I was just walking up the precinct. And who should be a walking down but our Fanny? Well, I didn't know it come from her holidays, because I know they'd gone to Spain, her and Joe. I'd never been abroad before. I said, oh, Fanny, when did Joe come back? This was 2 days ago. And if I could have walked it home, I should have been back afore then. I said, why, how was the weather? Oh, he said, it only rained twice all the week. Once for 4 days and once for 3. When we was coming back on the plane, the captain got up to the mic and he says, ladies and gentlemen, this plane will land 2 hours behind schedule because one of the engines is conked out. Fanny says, I looked at Joe. I said, Joe, if ever the other engine conks out, we should be stuck up here all night. I said, what sort of lodgings did you have then? Oh, he says, I never want to spend another night there. As I couldn't sleep for flies. As the next morning I said to the landlady, I've got a dead flea in my bed. The landlady says, oh, well, if he's dead, it won't hurt anybody. I says, no, but there must have 1,000 come to the funeral. Fanny says, I've just come out of our tummies. That's her son, and his wife's name's Charmaine. He says, I shouldn't think he was awakened when he married her. There sat in front of a big roaring fire enough to roast ox. And there was a blight in her eyes up. I said, what are you crying for? He says, I'm hot. I said, where's Tommy? He says, he's in bed chopping firewood. He says, he get his job up here now. He says it's too hard for him, too heavy, they keep putting all heavy work onto him. And he says he can't sleep at night because he thinks he's doing us out of a job. He says he found somebody's wage packet yesterday. And he thought, oh, I shall be all right now, I'll take it home. He says he brought it home, and when he opened it, he says they'd had 3 days off. He says, we ain't had no luck in our family for years and years. None on us. I've had none of us since I was a kid. Father used to say, all the pennies you hang you, put 'em in that little red box, it'll save 'em for you. He says, I was 16 apart, I found out it was a gas meter. He says this father lost his one eye through looking through somebody's keyhole. So he sent to the National Health for a glass nun. And when he come back, he couldn't see through it. Fanny says, tell him to make a hole in it, then he'll see through it. He says, there's our Lily. Our Lily wanted to be a model, so I went and had a facelift done. And when the bill come, it dropped again. There's our Nellie. Our Nellie went courting for years and years, Fanny, without one chap, you know that. Fanny says, oh, I can remember that. And he wouldn't marry her. And her had the baby. But he still wouldn't marry her, so I took it to court. And they put 10 bob a week on him till the kid was 16. So when the kid got a bit older, he used to send him for the 10 bob. So it went on like that till it was the last week, and he reached 16. His father says, here you am, this is the last 10 bob. take it back to your mother and tell her I ain't your father no longer. So he come back home. He says, Mother, this is the last 10 bob. And he says, he ain't my father no longer. I says, y'all go straight back and tell him he never has been. Well, folks, I got to wind it up now. I've had my allowance. So I'll come and see you all again on the second half. So cheerio.
This song reminds me of Dolly Allen in a way, because it's about a bloke who sells his wife. And Dolly's always on about her old man in her act, as it were. And this character in the song takes his wife down to Birmingham to try and sell her. And believe it or not, at one time they used to take their wives regularly down to the marketplace to sell them. And as long ago as the reign of King Canute, they were selling wives because he made a law against it, but like in other things he failed miserably, and they were still selling them 1,000 years later. What they would do, they'd tie a halter around the girl's neck, lead her down to the marketplace, buy a toll ticket as they went into the market. This was important later on. Then she was led 4 times around the market patch, and they believed that if you didn't do this leading round, the custom was illegal. Of course, it was illegal anyway, but they believed they legalized it by leading the girl around the market. And then she was set up on a platform, and everybody sort of had a quick look and so on. And she was eventually auctioned off and sold to the highest bidder. Prices in the black country vary between about 5 bob and £1 for a good one. So if you relate this to the going rates of the day, nowadays, for about £22.50 you could buy yourself a real cracker, which can't be bad really, can it? Once she was sold, the toll ticket was handed over as legal proof of ownership, and the 3 retired to the nearest pub to celebrate the divorce and the marriage in one go. The character in this song is John Hobbs, and he takes his wife down to Smithfield Market in Birmingham, which of course was Birmingham's meat market, which seems like an appropriate place to sell your wife, I suppose. And he tries to sell his wife at the market there, and this is a song about him and his endeavours. Well, a jolly shoemaker, John Hobbs, jolly shoemaker was he. He's married Jane Carter, no damsel looks smarter, but he's caught a tartar, yes, he's caught a tartar, John Hobbs did he. Well, he's tied a rope to her, John Hobbs, tied a rope to her today. To escape from hot water, to Smithfield he's brought her, but nobody bought her, they all were afraid of Jane Hobbs, were they? Oh, we'll buy a wife, says Hobbs, John Hobbs, a sweet pretty wife, says he. But somehow they tell us, them wife-dealing fellers were all of them sellers, and none of them wanted Jane Hobbs, did they? Oh, where is the rope, says Hobbs, John Hobbs, come give me the rope, says he. I won't stand to wrangle, myself I will strangle, on hang dingle dangle, he died in a tangle, John Hobbs did he. John Hobbs. Don't know whether you've ever been to Bloxwich. That's strange and foreign land, not very far from here. But if you have, you'll know that Bloxwich is in fact famous for bull baiting. And there are many bloodthirsty tales of terrible bull baits where the dogs were flung into the air and their entrails fell upon the crowd, and the dogs eventually dropped dead amongst the people watching the bull bait. They used Staffordshire bull terriers very often, or sometimes the bigger bulldogs. This is a very strange tale about a Bloxwich bull bait which took place in 1779. Bloxwich bull bait. Come, friends, and listen to my tale, ye shall not find it dull, for it is the strange and merry lay about ye Bloxwich bull. It was the wake of 79, the village greens was full. They said no town afar or near could boast so fine a bull. Dogs were brought, stakes were driven, and then there came a lull, while 3 tall men went o'er the green to fetch ye famous bull. But when they reached ye stable door, long faces did they pull. Below, some knave had been afore and taken away ye bull. The folks they raved, the folks they swore, they said it was a gull. They said they'd bait ye 3 tall men unless they found ye bull. Ye 3 tall men were sore afraid, their hearts with grief were full. Give us an hour's space, they said, and we will find ye bull. They searched from noon till twilight grey, and then to evening dull. But never more ye people spied, ye tall men, or ye bull. I'll sing a very, very short little ditty that was very popular in the pubs and clubs around about the end of the 19th century. Not been heard very often since. And it's called 9 Times a Night. And you may be led to believe by the title that you're going to get a lot from this song, although it doesn't give you as much as you think you might or ought to get, as it were. It describes the adventures of a young man who comes up from the big city of London and puts it around when he gets to Walsall that he belongs to the family of 9 Times a Night. Oh, an handsome young man from London's come down to set up his train in old Walsall town. Being asked of his train, he did answer down right well, I belongs to the family of 9 Times a Night. Well, he soon filled the town with loud trumps of fame. He was laughed, winked and smiled at wherever he came. Maids, widows and wives went to bed, they drawn near, said 9 times a night, God, I wish he was here. Well, a widow turned to her serving maids, Betsy and Nan. She's bade him look out for this wonderful man, and charged them as soon as they saw him in sight for to bring the glad tidings of old 9 times a night. Well, fortune favoured their scheme the very next day. These jigging young jades saw him coming their way. They hastened upstairs with a cheerful delight. Lord, ma'am, as I live, here comes 9 times a night. Well, the wedding's soon over, the truth I now tell. Went to bed and 6 times he's pleased her quite well. She said in her heart she was satisfied quite, but still gave him an hint of his 9 times a night. Oh, he said, my dear bride, you've understood me wrong. I said to that family I did belong. Oh, 9 times a night, 'tis too much for one man. I can't do it myself, but me sister Nan can. 9 times.
I ain't going to put my cap on to keep my hair out of my eyes. I'm putting it on to keep the sun out of yours, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here. They're talking in recent weeks about the sex equality. But it's all wrong, you know. I was down at Darlaston recently doing some interviews on behalf of ATV about how people felt about it. And I says to one old man, what do you think about the new sex bill? He says, I suppose we'll have to pay it, shall we? But of course, it's never been like that. I mean, men and women being equal, feeling the same, it's all wrong. You ain't going to tell me as men enjoy feeling a bit under par. Yeah, you've got to think about it. And when you hear Ralph's dialect, you know, it's a bit different than Tommy Mundon from Isles Owen. And Tommy Edwards, the old mate who was a midnight comedian, we was born and reared at Tippen. It's all wrong that we were still 18 missionaries there. We stopped years ago. We're about 8 octaves lower than the Isles Owen folks are talking like Ralph and Tommy and them higher up than we done. But there's still 7 or 8 perceptible variations of the dialect in the Black Country, and about how we speak is in the news. And I bet you I've heard all sorts of views. And some reckon we accents due to the grime which goes down with Wazins most of the time. And a lot call way up the way we're talking, but you'll keep your ears open when you're walking any place with Black Country folk in, and you'll hear these words, and I be joking, we don't say do not, we just say do. That's the truth, but perhaps you'll know. Going is going and come is come. If you're going home, I'm going home. Where you been is where have you been. I trust you with it and see what I mean. Oh, it's easy, kid, to get in a mess. Because it ain't simple, you must confess. Don't give in. That's the only way. There's just a bit more I'd like to say about words that we use every day. Just use your head, that's the key. Teachers at school, I'm teachers at school. Study a bit if you know as a rule. You can prove it yourself, you take a vote. Nobody speaks English the way it's wrote, so don't get flummoxed. That's simply confused. I've quoted but few of our words that are used. With accentuation, there are positively more. We are the wool, we what we sure or we call. You'll get out and about, you'll listen and see. I'd hazard a guess then that most would agree. Our kid, it would be a real crying shame if black country folks did all speak the same. There you go. Mind you, Tommy Edwards, you know, I'll tell you something about Tommy. He's the last bloke I'd like to be shipwrecked with. He ate anything. When he was a kid, his mother used to try to spike posh, and of course there's nothing worse than folks that try to put it on. I mean, you've got them over this road, you've got them everywhere, you know, you meet them at weddings. I've only got 2 champagnes. Oh, they sound all the H's in all the wrong places, you know. Know they? And his mother was one of that, Tommy's mother. He says one more, says, come here, Tommy says. He says, I'll come in, you know. He says, how is it, he says, as last night, he says. There was 2 pieces of apple pie on the celly head, he says. He says, there's only one this morning, he says, because I couldn't see the t'other bugger in the dark. And he's always tried to be a bit above himself, I'll say that for him. He only puts 3x2 slabs down for the council, he goes telling folks he's a pathologist. And when he drove the steamroller he got it about, he got a company vehicle. That's what sort of bloke he is. Mind you, I was born at Prince's End, Tipton, by the Prince of Wales, if anybody knows it. And my sister, well, we got a little provision shop, and it was a wool shop, really, because folks say, will you save me this, will you save me the t'other, you know. It's right off. My sister next door, but one egg got official wool shop, and a proper job, you know. Old woman come in there, says, I want 4 ounces of red wool off the front of the window. My sister says, I want 4 ounces of red wool off the front of the window. I want 4 ounces of red wool off the front of it. My sister says, when you're getting yourself a cardigan or a scarf, Liza, and I says, no. I says, I'm knitting a pull-on off of my dog because he keeps catching cold. I said, what sort of dog is it? I says, a bull terrier, I says. My sister says, well, a bull terrier's a bit broad across the shoulders. I says, you know that day a lot. I says, 4 ounces of wool. I says, why don't you bring the dog in the shop and we'll measure him? Make sure you've got enough wool for him. I says, oh, I wanted to do that because I wanted to be a surprise for him. Oh, it's right, though, you do get... Mind you, this end, I'll come over this road occasionally. I don't mind going abroad. And I met one woman one day. I was doing a bit of interviewing. I'd got a poodle here, French poodle. I was trying to teach a bark in French, you know. I'm really stuck up by that, you know. We get some on them. It's my tough. I don't say them tough in ours, but they got bluebeard packets around the nostrils, you know. You can pick them out. We get them all over the black country. But there's nothing worse, as I say, than when they try to put this thing on, you know. And of course you meet all sorts, like the vicar, you know, of Sedgley. Heineken I bought old motor there, you know. They couldn't get it going, they was cussing blue flashes. And the vicar come up, he says, I can hear you. He said, it's the Sabbath day. He said, and people long hair, they don't want to hear this. He said, blaspheming. He said, and saying this thing. He said, what's wrong? Heineken says, the bloody car won't go. And the vicar said, well, he said, swearing won't make it go. He said, I strongly advise you and your friend here to kneel by the car, put your hands together, say a little prayer, and see what that does. So Heineken and I knelt by the car, and I said a little prayer. He said, I'll get into the car and switch the ignition key on. And straight away the engine started. The vicar says, well, bloody hell. One of the most popular spots, ladies and gentlemen, for coating now. And I was chatting to Les Raffles at the bar. He says, well, I do the one about the coating at the bus stops. He comes from Darlaston, and they'll see a lot round that area where I got no bunks, there ain't no bunks to go over now. They've leveled them all out. There ain't no holes, no trees hardly, you know, and they'll have a trees. And they do the coating around the bus stops. If ever a graph was produced to show the most popular spot for coating, it'd be the bus stops. Well, they've levelled the bunks and they've filled the holes. So that they're cooting round the poles and the bus stops now, they've snogging snubs, where the chaps and wenches go for hugs. And they're showing off a trick or two to the folks and waiting in the queue. But queues don't count when they're in a cuddle. In any case, the mind's in a muddle. Wherever they've been, they don't care. If a busload of folks turn and stay, it's exciting stuff straight off the cuff. And they don't know when they've had enough. They've lost to the world in sweet embraces. We couldn't care less look on the faces. We've had sex in the papers and on TV. Now it's round the bus stops for all to see. I'm full to the brim with love and kissing. And they don't care if the buzz is missing. Once our kid the lips have met, they don't hear nothing, you can bet. It'll take 1,000 Midland Reds to make someone shift the heads. I'm thinking of somebody to the buzz and they don't care if he comes and goes. Because as I say, they just don't care. It's a trip to Loveland without the fare. They don't wait till the coast is clear. They go into clinches anywhere. Any place now does for hugs. On the bus stops now, I'm snogging snugs. I thought I'd just chuck one in, before the interval about television. I've done a few broadcasts, I'm advertising Brill Cream shortly for the Silver Cream folks. And, thank you. Years ago, I wrote one. They paid me to keep my mouth shut, actually, about the adverts. Well, you'll be watching a programme, perhaps double your money, and on the come adverts, well, more than funny. Well, I be joking, they make me smile. You'll get cigars, then bras, then beer, then oil. And you'll want about £1,000 a week to buy the lot, so take your pick. Now, you'll check that advert yourself, you'll notice, mate. Most of them on suck or what to write. It's have you out for a break, a Kit Kat side. Penguin, perhaps, it's chocolate outside. Then it's Aero chocolate with a lot of bubbles. Promise lemon meringue to get your troubles. Then it's Mars bars, Milky Ways, them are nice. And the bikini wenches with ambrosia rice. I'm stuck for words, you don't know what to say. Well, let Cadbury solve it with their milk tray. And the dancing girl was a bit of all right. A Slington with a Turkish delight. Then you've got contrast chocolate to pamper your pet. Next minute you've gone and joined the tie set. Then you'll get all that saffness talk. Is it butter or is it stalk? Then it was Weetabix, then shredded wheat, and the polo mints, what they ate in the street out on a bit. For them in hurry, you've got Vesta beef, spice and curry. And if you've got hungry nipper, shut his cake all with your sardine skipper. If you still haven't had enough, finish him off with your sugar puff. If you're a woman, you won't have no rest. Not till past the gravy test. There's spaghetti, black magic, then baked beans. Well, how much more can I poke on your screens? I'd want a belly 5 foot wide, or I'd ate them all and mother's pride. It's the truth though, ain't I, all right? They stop you with all sorts every night. But if you really could eat all them, you'd all deserve the bloody CDM. Thank you. Well, trying to time things out nicely, The changing scene of the Black Country, ladies and gentlemen, brings me very nicely on to one that I wrote many years ago about a tatter at Tipton, and his name was Tuzzy Duffield. And I went into a pub, strangely enough called the Three Horseshoes, and he was crying his eyes up. I said, "What's up with you, Tuzzy?" He said, "I've lost my horse." And when he told me he lost him, he hadn't really lost him, he hadn't mislaid him, he hadn't run off, he'd died. And this bloke was really completely full. He was crying his eyes up. And I took him back home, and I wrote this one. The horses are going off the street. You don't hear much the clop of the feet. It's enough to break an old one's heart to see them go on the cart. They've got to go, it's their own. To make it clear for the motor car. These petrol stations, all round the place, where the horses stood, with a tin on the face. How about the blacksmith shops, with horses' shoes? We all could hear the latest news. Why is they on with the shoe on horses' hoof? It smelled the place, floor to roof. You can remember them stamping and tossing the head, as good as telling you they'd got to be fed. Black horses, brown horses, white uns and greys. There was plenty about in the old-fashioned days. Bread horses, milk horses, anything at all. They were there at beck and call. And how about the cobble roads to help them to pull? Great heavy carts with stuff so full. There was funeral horses with black shining coats and hooves shining like polished boots. Governor's cart horses stood outside of the inns. There was pit horses and rail horses. And horses tempted the bins now about them horses all round the cuts, with the boats to pull, to strain the goods o'er them where cool hours with body and soul, patching iron and wood, anything, coal. It's only now and again as we get a treat here, the Club of us. Out on the street I could keep going on, and I don't know why. I think if I did, I just had to cry. It was a good while ago. The time don't matter. I talked about horses, and it was we and old Tatter, and it was him who told me to break his heart, to watch his horse go, and then his car. Thanks for listening. As I say,
Nice to be in Great Barr again. I've been here a few times on the way to Villa Park. I'd like to sing you a song about the place where I live, Netherton. A song called The Netherton Men. Now I noticed from a very early age they got peculiar habits there, and later I found out most men have got these habits if they ain't sort of under the women's thumb. Because wherever they go out, or whatever they set out to do in the day, they end up in the pub. In my particular district anyway. And the Netherton Men, I wrote this song about a typical weekend in the life of a Netherton man. And I'll tell you the chorus if you'd like to join me. It would sound quite nice, I think. It's them Netherton men, them a boozy old lot, but them good blokes of that there's no doubt. Of course they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs. Of course them open and it's time to go out. You're going to try it with me, huh? Netherton's a very famous place, you know. It's famous for, they made the chains for the Titanic in Netherton. And look what happened to that. This is the Netherton Men. Let's start with a chorus to give you a chance to pick it up, eh? Them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. You can see 'em on Friday with their baskets and clocks, taking pigeons to go for a res. But as soon as they'm gone, it's into the Swan, for a pint by the bar, that's the place. 'Cause them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. Saturday morning they'm there playing cards with their mates, discussing who's got the best chance. Drinking pints of some sort and never a thought of them pigeons just halfway from France. 'Cause them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. Saturday night's just the same, crib darts or some game, all together now the winners and losers. Whatever's the weather, they'll be happy together till it's time to turn out to the boozers. 'Cause them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. You can see 'em on Sunday taking the dogs for a walk, round the reservoir and down by the cuts. It's under the Sounding Bridge and round by Lodge Farm, but they'll be back for the boozers, I'm sure. 'Cause them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. Sunday night they'll be early, they'm off like a shot, open them doors they will shout. Let's get the best sights for me and me mates, there'll be a rush when the chapels turn out. 'Cause them Netherton men, they'm a boozy old lot, but they'm good blokes of that there's no doubt. 'Cause they puts on their togs and they whistles their dogs, 'cause they'm open and it's time to go out. Thank you. Had a terrible job getting here tonight. In the E-type. Got an E-type too. Well, that's what I call it. Actually, it's a 1962 850 Mini. A bit of trouble with it. I was coming down this dual carriageway down from West Bromwich here. And I thought I'll give it a good run down here and open it up. I got it up to 27 mile an hour. He's right, 27. See a bloke on a moped. You know what they look like, these John Surtees types, you know. All goggles, you know, a 70-pound crash hat and a 30-bob motorbike, you know. I thought I'll see him, see how my car can go. I put my foot down, I overtook this bloke on the moped. I must have got up to about 28 and a half of it. And I went past him, like he was going out of fashion. And I hadn't been past him a few seconds, this bloke come past me on his moped, he shot past me, he did. And a few seconds after that, he shot back the other way. I thought he's showing off. So I put it into top, put my foot down. I must have nearly 30 of it. And I overtook him again. And a few seconds after I overtook him, he goes past me. And a few seconds later, back the other road. I thought, right, he's got to have it. Foot right down. 32 and a half, I think it's the fastest I've ever been, really. And I overtook him again at 32 and a half. And a few seconds after that, he come past me again. A few seconds after, the other way. And it set me off. I couldn't stand the pace of going that fast that long, you know. I had to pull into the side and have a breather. Pulled in the side there. And he was still going up and down the road. I thought, you know, I never had enough of some of these blokes. And eventually he pulled to a stop right outside the window, and I wound it down. And he says, thank Christ you've stopped, mate. He said, I got my braces caught under your door handle. This is a serious song. It's about a story I read in a book about the history of Kinvey. You know, that's where we all go instead of going to Blackpool, in the Black Country. You go riding on a donkey over Clent or down to Kinvey to play in the sandcastles, you know. But it's a lovely place and a nice area. And about let's see, 160 odd years ago now, there's a farmer travelling back from Stourbridge Market to Stewart, which is on the road to Kinvey. And he got stopped by a travelling carpenter who killed him for his money and made off. And the story really is about the way the detectives from London caught him, you know, for the murder of Benjamin Robbins. If you'll give me your kind attention, a dreadful sad story you'll hear of a tragic day in December. 1812 was the year. It concerns a man named Ben Robbins who lived in a house so grand. Donsley Hall it is called near Kinver in Staffordshire's beautiful land. A man known as John Woods was passing by, a carpenter of high grade. He travelled the country all around, plying of his trade. He came upon Ben Robbins, and he'd done this poor man in, and he robbed him of his money, and made off to the Whittington Inn. John Woods was known at the Whittington, where he kept his own pewter pots, but after a pint or two he vanished, where the people they knew not. Ben Robbins' friends in Stourbridge, when they heard of this dreadful deed, soon sent for the men of the law who came there with greater speed. Harry Atkins and Sam Taunton, both street runners of great fame. Harry Atkins was known as the Ferret in London from where he came. He soon found out John Woods was not the villain's true name. He said he was called William Howe and it was he who was to blame. Two boxes of carpenter's tools had to London been recently sent. To find and inspect these two boxes, to London the two runners went. Inside they found pistol and bullets, but did they belong to Bill Howe? So they waited and hid in the corner, and to the ferret this man had to bow. William Howe was taken to Stafford, tried and hanged in short time, but a double distinction he gained from the doings of this dreadful crime. They say he was the last in these parts from a gibbet to be strong, and they say he was one of the first to be dropped through a trapdoor and hung. Ben Robbins.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll stop for a few minutes, as I know you. Anyway, it's very nice to be here, ladies and gentlemen. As you know from the introduction, the name's Tom, but I'll let you all into a little secret. The wife calls me Cyril because I've got a nice one. And just to prove how keen I was to come, ladies and gentlemen, I've actually walked it tonight all the way from Alzowen. Now, if you know where Alzowen's situated, you know that's a damn good walk from here. But I'd got no alternative, really. It was either catching a bus, which there was no bus runs here, and I couldn't come by a car because I've bought a Mazda car. One of these foreign things. I always thought that was light bulbs, but, bought this Mazda car and the bottoms fell out right where I sit. But I shall keep it. It'll do to run about in. Mind you, I've noticed, ladies and gentlemen, that when you walk, you know, you'll see a lot of things that you wouldn't normally see if you was riding in a car on a bus. For instance, I was walking down Chapel Lane here, and this chap come from behind this hedge, and scared me for a bit, and he said, excuse me stopping you like this, but I'm you, Tom Mundon, the comic from Alzone. I said, yes. He said, well, Tom, if it don't embarrass you too much, mate, he said, I think you're great. And I looked at him, I said, well, I don't see on you, I miss yourself, you know. So we danced a bit, and and while we was dancing in the lane, there was a picture to see, I should have seen it. He said, will you answer me a question? I said, well, I'll try. He said, well, tell me, he says, what's that up there, the sun or the moon? I said, I've no idea, chap, I live in Alzo and I don't come from around this end. Then eventually I find the place, you see, eventually. And there's a young lady outside there with a fur coat and no knickers. You can tell the way they stand, can't you know. On these cold nights, you know. And I said, would you like a good time? I says, a good time in Great Barr. I said, you've got to be joking. I said, anyway, I've only got 50 pence on me, so that's all right, I got plenty of change. I'll tell you what the attraction is, lads, if you're interested. Now, the attraction is the new aftershave that the wife bought me for my birthday called Stallion. Really great stuff. I had a donkey follow me home the other night, I can tell that. Because it embarrasses me just as much as it embarrasses you, I've no doubt. But it's all sex these days, ladies and gentlemen. I get a little bit fed up on it. You know, I said to a pal of mine the other day, I said, do you ever talk to your wife when you're making love? Well, it depends if there's a phone handy. You know, I mean, this is the sort of thing they... you know, this is a sort of... And I remember having it rammed down my throat when I went to have the preliminary talk with the vicar just before I got married. I remember saying to the vicar just before I walked out of the vestry, I said, Vicar, I said, do you believe in sex before marriage? He said, I don't mind, Tom, as long as it doesn't make you late for the service. Now, just before I get off the subject, because I know it's embarrassing, it's embarrassing me just as much. But just before I get away from the subject, I must tell you about a couple of black country chaps who decide to spend a weekend in Paris. And then sort of looking at all the shops. And all of a sudden, the one turns to the other one and says, now look here, Joe. He says, use your loaf a little bit. He says, be a little bit discreet. He said, but there's a young lady over the road keeps looking at you. He says, where? You know. Because I'm very discreet black country blokes, say that, you know. He says, it's over in that doorway. It's over in that doorway, and her head took her eyes off you all the time we've been walking up and down this street. He said, if you'll play your cards right, kiddies, I think you'll be all right there. He said, think so? He says, of course you will. Get on, I shall say nothing. A black country bloke wouldn't say nothing, would he? You know, you can imagine, you know. Anyway, the chap ventures over. He don't come back for an hour. And he was enthralled with this young lady. He said, kid, it was great. He said, I don't want anything to do with English women again. He said, it was absolutely wonderful. He said, I'll say one thing, I wasn't as good as my wife. He said, but you'll take it from me, kid, it was good. He said, now, you'll go and have a go. Oh, no, he said, I don't think I... He says, get on, dip your bread, take no notice. Keep squalling, see? Anyway, he walks over a little bit timid, you know. But he don't come back for an hour and a half. And when he come back, he was absolutely over the moon. He says, mate, Joe was right about that woman. He says, her was good. He says, mind you, not as good as your missus. He said, but you're taking me, kid, her was good. It's all... And I don't know whether you realise this, lads, you know, but every time you make love, it takes half an hour off your life. You know that, lads, don't you? Ralph Lawton's living on borrowed time, I don't mind telling you. But don't worry, Ralph, because it was my doctor who told me this. Now, I don't know whether you've got any doctors, because when you come to a golf club, you never know who you've got in the audience, but we may possibly have a doctor in the audience. Well, my particular doctor, no matter what the problem is, he always tells you to sleep with your window open. You see, because when he ain't in the surgery, he goes out burgling houses at night, you know, with a crafty devil, you know. Mind you, I love these little quick doctors. I could squail out of our court. Like the black country chap who walked in. He says, Doctor, I'm having trouble with my bowels. And the doctor says, well, are you regular? He said, oh, yes, every morning, 6:30. He said, what's your problem? He said, I'll get up till 9. Or the chap who says, Doctor, I'd like to be on your panel, so the doctor nailed him to the door, you know. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. The only other occasion I had to go to the doctors, you know, ladies and gentlemen, was just before I got married, you know. And I've been very fortunate, or unfortunate, whichever way you care to look at it, that I've married somebody 18 years my junior, you see. And I had to go and have a check-up before I got married. I'll never forget it. And I went walking into my doctor, who I was telling you about earlier. And he says, arthritis? I said, no, Tommy Mundon, as a matter of fact. You don't know it. And he says, what's your problem? He said, I told him. He says, right, strip off, which I did. And he went outside, had a good laugh, and come back in again. And he says, what can I do for you, madam? Because it was a cold morning, I remember. He said, if I were you, Mr. Money, I'd dye it. I said, what colour? But, it's all right, I'm blasting him out in the other room. It's all right. But I must say, it's very, very nice to be here, ladies and gentlemen, because it's a change from doing the work in men's clubs. You know, because after all, you know, the Great Barr Golf Club. I mean, they tell me you do play the occasional bingo here, but, you know, when anybody has a winning card, you have to shout, Masonette, you know, very park, you know. You know, different from the old Labour Club at Bromsgrove, which I worked about a couple of months ago, you know. And I'll never forget when I got there, you see, I had to walk in through the main entrance of this club. And I comes to two doors, you see, one was marked over 21, the other one was marked under 21. Well, I went through the one over 21. Comes to two more doors, one was marked male, the other one was marked female, I went through the one marked male. Come to two more doors, one was marked married, the other one was marked single, I went through the one marked married. Well, straightforward enough. Comes to two more doors, one was marked Labour, which I expected being a Labour club, but the other one was marked Conservative. I thought, now, be a little bit diplomatic, you know. Well, I had a quick look round, see nobody was looking, and I nipped through the one marked Conservative, and I found myself outside again. But, these are the sort of things you have to put up with, you know, when I'm in this. Now, I'm glad I have now, but I've given up Tuesday night's picture now, because I always like going to the cinema, you know, on a Tuesday. And I must explain that I like to get there early so I can get the best seat, you know, right on the very front. Well, I went to see a Western a few weeks ago. They made me sheriff 3 times. You can tell how close I was, you know. But on this particular occasion, I must tell you about. I'd got my seat picked on the front as usual, took my shoes off, undone my coat. Just about to get stuck into this film. And this chap in a long white cow gown come bouncing down the aisle, you know. He said, I'm sorry, sir, you can't sit there. I said, I beg your pardon. He said, you can't sit there. And I said, well, mate, I ain't going to shift. He says, right, you'll play the organ when he comes up then. And I remember, this is absolutely true, I remember being in the pictures one night with a wife, you know, and I'll tell you the same as this. And we were sitting there, so and the lights went off at interval. And there was a chap sitting next to me, and he got up, and he trod right on my foot. No apology, he just simply walks away. Oh, sister, well, I was supposed to think about you. Anyway, about 2 or 3 minutes after he come back, this chap didn't he tap me on the shoulder. He said, excuse me, he said, did I tread your foot? Ha, says you, flopping did, mate. Oh, so I'm in the right row then. But, don't care the devil, these days do that. Must give you just a couple of anecdotes last story before I've finished. It seems that Eli's walking down the town with his wife one day. And he says, don't look no age, but one of your bosoms is a showing. This is one, he said, this is one of your chests is hanging out. I went, that's done it, I've left the baby on the bus again. They don't need no thinking about, do they? Another lovely one, Eli sitting by the fire with his wife. You can picture the scene, a lovely fireside scene where Eli's sitting by the fire with his wife, and all of a sudden, right out of the blue, she says, Eli, do you think I look younger without a bra? And he said, well, I'll say this for you, it's took all the wrinkles out of your face. But, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm absolutely great. Now, then, the next half will be a little bit more flexible because we shall have all this bloody Cape Kennedy stuff out of the road, you know. So until then, I'd like to leave you all with a bit of Ailso in philosophy. Never put off until tomorrow what you can do today, because if you like it, you can always do it again tomorrow. See you later. Thanks for listening.